Please note this episode contains discussions of situations or themes that some may find emotionally distressing. Listener discretion is advised.
So I was 16 and I was at school. He was a little bit older than me. His friend held people back. He walked up to me and attacked me in the middle of the street. Time froze. I was a shell of the person that I was. I was manipulated and coerced into staying with him. I thought I was literally a pillar of health. And a Daily Mail article came out about me that sort of said, she is responsible for eating disorders. I was like, right, things need to change.
Social media, is it good for us?
No, there's online forums now where they're just absolutely tearing you to shreds. I'll sob my eyes out at points. In terms of dealing with it, I don't.
Today's guest is Alice Living, one of the biggest names in fitness. Alice is a personal trainer, a best-selling author, podcast host, and influencer. And having gone through her own journey with her mental and physical health, Alice amassed a following of over 700,000 people on her social platforms. And she released 3 books, The Body Bible, Eat Well Every Day, and Everyday Fitness. Alice has also released sell-out collections of fitness wear, and she's launched with global brands that include Sweaty Betty, Herbal Essences, and Samsung. Today, Alice is a proud ambassador for Women's Aid, and today she joins me as we go behind the scenes on her life. From an abusive relationship in her teenage years that would change her life forever, to redefining what success and happiness looks like in Alice's life today. Well, Alice, welcome to the show. It is so good to have you on. How are you today?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great. Now, Alice, you just completed the Graph of Life, and how was that for you?
Interesting. I have never done anything like that before. I felt like I was in a therapy session, but
Good therapy?
Yeah. Therapy's always good, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Challenging, but good. But no, it was interesting. Definitely.
Yeah. And we started there as we look at the Graph of Life, looking at your childhood. And actually, I want to kick off there because what is the earliest memory in your life that you have?
It's so funny, isn't it? I think I'm really bad with memories. I'm one of those people that once a stage of my life is done, I close the door and I move on, and I very rarely look back.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think I'm just a very forwards moving person. Yeah. I'm always like focusing on the next thing. And I've always had a really clear vision of wanting to be successful and to do big things with my life, even from as far back as I can remember. You know, when I think back to my earliest memories, some of those are dressing up in crazy costumes and putting on shows for my family, because that was my biggest thing. I just wanted to be on the stage, and I knew that's what I wanted. So, you know, it was always like from way back when, really focusing in on, this is what I want to be, and I know exactly what I want to do, and I just want to get there. So I think a lot of my life has been, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And it's actually only recently that I've done a lot more kind of reflection and learnt from, you know, a lot of that stuff in therapy and in doing all those things. But actually, when you set out the challenge of starting to think about your earliest memory, I thought, what is that? I don't know.
Wow. So what's the like earliest age that you can think of? Is it like Alice at 10 or is it 5?
Yeah.
Obviously it's a blur.
So I vividly remember my brother being born, and he is 3 years younger than me. 3 years.
Okay.
That's terrible. Yeah, 3 years younger than me, and a bit.
Yeah.
And I do remember that. And I remember my mum coming home and being sat at the top of the stairs and being like, oh my God, I've got a brother. But I don't remember like big things from early on. I think it's definitely sort of the later years towards kind of like being 10, 11, 12 that I remember a lot more of than those really early years.
But one thing you said you remember is, so between the age of 3 there, brother's born, 10, 11, you've got this obviously voice in your head that we all have. And one is saying you are going to be a performer on stage. What was the voice in your head like as you were growing up? Was it like very confident out there? Tell me a bit more about little Alice.
Yeah, I think I have always been. I think that I am, as most people are, a person of two halves, in that outwardly I can be incredibly confident. And I, particularly in my, as a younger person, as a young girl, I really remember being confident. And I remember that my brother, when he would get dropped at birthday parties, he would be so like timid and desperately shy. Whereas my mum would drop me here, there and anywhere, and I'd just walk in like it was like nothing else to me. So I always remember being quite confident. And I think definitely, like I said, that person of two halves, I definitely had an inner insecurity. And we all have that voice that's kind of like, giving us the challenging notes to our confidence. But I do remember being really confident. I remember being really kind of self-assured and quite driven, even like I said, even from a young age, of knowing what it was that I wanted to achieve.
And from that though, your mum and dad, when you were growing up, what were they like for you? Your mum's called Sarah, if I'm not wrong.
She is.
Yeah. She's described you as friendly and fearless, which is...
Did she?
Yeah,
Oh,
I've been reading upon what Sarah said about Alice.
Nice.
But what were they like for you growing up? Were they like, Alice, you can take on the world? Or what was the rhetoric at home?
Yeah, I think I feel very grateful for the fact that my entire childhood was very much built on the premise of you can be whatever it is that you want to be. I have never felt from my parents, and I think my brother and sister would agree, they have never been pushy or kind of set the bar really high in terms of what it is that they want us to achieve. I think their sole motivation for us as kids was to be happy first and foremost. And I think I feel so lucky in that sense that we had that grounding and we had that ability to make mistakes and to kind of be who we wanted to be. And I really remember like touch points in my life where I haven't necessarily got the best grades or done, the best at something. And my mum's still always been there to say, as long as you've done your best, then that's all that matters. And my dad as well. My dad, I probably remember, not that I remember less of him, but he was, we had a very typical English upbringing in that my mum stayed at home and looked after us and my dad went out to work. But yeah, I do remember both of them being really supportive and being really encouraging of whatever it is that I wanted to do, whatever it was that I wanted to do. And I do find that gave me and bolstered me in terms of my confidence of, turning around to my parents and saying, I want to go and do musical theatre and not go to university. I think part of me deep down knew that they'd be okay with it. And obviously it was terrifying at the time to say that when you have this whole path ahead of you of going down like the traditional route. Yeah. But I do think that I knew deep down, actually, I know they're going to support me with whatever it is that I want to achieve.
Which it's fantastic because I was with somebody yesterday who said, oh, my son wants to study X. He's absolutely not doing that. And dictating that way to your parents, well, actually, Alice, whatever makes you happy is what's important. And so you've got a culture at home that's focused on your happiness. And the wider culture, you're from a Jewish background and family. Yeah. What was that like growing up? Did it influence you in any way or did it not?
I think the only influence that it's brought to me is that family is really important. And obviously there are other aspects to it. But I think that the most important thing that it brought to me was family is really important, and we spent a lot of time with our family. I'm incredibly close with my cousins, with my grandparents, with my aunts and uncles, in a way that I look at other people from different faith backgrounds and see that they don't necessarily have the same closeness and the same kind of family bond that we do. I think that I really value the sense of not hierarchy, because I guess that makes it sound wrong, but the fact that like my grandparents are really like these idols that all of us look up to. I mean, I hold them in such high esteem and I have so much love and respect for them, and they have worked incredibly hard to provide the life for my parents and my mum's brothers and sisters, and then the same for us grandchildren. Like they have really given everything to their family, and I think that we've really basked in the love that they have for everyone around them. I also think that they've really taught me the value of kind of hard work and really kind of committing to working hard, being a good person, doing the right thing, just kind of basic, nice, core values. But yeah, I don't practice Judaism. So I think that the aspects of Judaism that I personally connect to are more on the kind of what it does for our family, what I can see it does for my, my family who do practice and who do observe. And I still will go to Shabbat dinner and we'll still do all those things, but I'm not necessarily as, connected to the faith side, but
Sure.
more the cultural side.
And you mentioned there the importance of family and love and relationships, which are so important. And we'll come on to love later. But as I know, you started to experience, not all relationships were full of love, or maybe on the outside they were, but deep down they weren't. And as Alice became a teenager, I know there's one particular relationship where things changed a lot for you. Can you just share with me a little bit about that relationship and one day in particular that things took a turn?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when I think back to that moment and I think, oh God, I can't believe that at some point I'll be so comfortable to talk about this, that it's like just rolls off the tongue, because I do so much work now for women's charities. Amazing. And I've spoken to so many domestic abuse survivors, and I've done so much in that space that now, because I've gone through my own healing journey, for you to say, can you talk about it? I'm like, yeah, of course, no problem. Yeah. And it almost makes me sort of minimize, I guess, to a certain extent, because I feel so far from that moment, how bad it really was at the time. But yeah, I think I had a great upbringing, and I could not fault a single part of my childhood, really. And so the only thing that I really wanted, that I maybe went a little bit too hard at, was wanting to be independent. I'd always wanted to be fiercely independent. I think my mum maybe referenced some of that in when she described me. So from probably as ages of 14, 15, I just wanted to be out the house. I wanted to be a teenager. I wanted to be going out and doing things with my friends and really having that air of independence. And I remember I had this friend who sort of offered to go to this house party with her. I obviously wasn't allowed to go, but I lied to my mom, said I was going to stay at my friend's house, and off I went. And at this house party, I met this guy, and he was a little bit older than me, and he really offered this pathway of, I've got a car, I can take you out, we can do all these things. It was basically my ticket to freedom and to being able to be out the house more and to be independent and kind of grown up in the way that I really wanted to be. So, we started seeing each other, and in the first sort of couple of months, it was great. And I think a lot of people that go through abusive relationships, and like I said, now I do so much work in this space that, I know the signs now, but in those first few months, it was very full on, very quickly. What we now know to be deemed as something called love bombing. You go from kind of 0 to 100 miles an hour pretty quickly. Right. It's very intense. It's very quick. You are suddenly going from not knowing each other to seeing each other every day or every other day or whenever it is. It really escalates quite quickly. And because I was the age that I was, and I was incredibly naive in my my experience with relationships, I just thought, oh my God, this guy loves me so much. Wow, I've really nailed it. Yeah. And so I just wanted to spend more and more time with him. And obviously there were no red flags at that point, to me anyway. What I know now is different, but at the time there were no red flags. There was nothing that really, said to me, this is not looking good. So I continued pursuing the relationship, and we had gone to watch a football match, and he was playing in it, and his friend was still on the sidelines. And so I ended up chatting to his friend because he wasn't on. And we got in the car to go home, driving home, didn't think anything was wrong. And he sort of started to bring up the fact that he was incredibly jealous of the fact that I was talking to his friend. And this was really weird to me, because I was like, well, it's your friend. Like, why would you find that, intimidating that I was talking to your friend or whatever? And the conversation kind of escalated because I really couldn't get my head around what the issue was. And then suddenly he just turned and just hit me. And when I think back now, it's almost like in those moments, time froze for a second, where you're like, oh my God, what has just happened? And, you start to run through all this thought process of, that was really bad, but that's the person that I love, and he's just done that to me. It was really confusing. And what then happened was he then turned to me and went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I've done that. That's so awful. And kind of showered me with love, and, sort of said that it was the worst thing he'd ever done and he'd never do it again. And so you're always thinking, oh my God, have I done something wrong? Was it me? And basically that was the start of a really horrible kind of descent into physical abuse, basically emotional abuse, physical abuse, for about a year. And, I think that what I see as being just a moment in time where everything changed, you know, I in some ways wish I could go back and realize that, of course, when your partner hits you, it's awful and it's wrong and it should never happen. But I think that because I was the age that I was, and I know so many women who I've now spoken to, you say the same thing, where it's like, you're so confused by the narrative because something awful's just happened to you, but then the person that you're supposed to be with is overly apologizing and making it out as if that's the worst thing they've ever done and they're never going to do it again, and they're showering you with love, and you do just sort of think, okay, well, I'm just going to go along with this, and it's the next time, but it's the worst thing they've done and they're sorry, and that, you know, it's a real pattern, and unfortunately for me, I got really trapped. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of women experience, is that abuse, you know, comes in many forms, but one of the very typical threads of it is that you are isolated from your support network. So you lose those touch points of people that might be your go-tos if something's gone wrong, or if you're having a bad day, or, you know, whatever. They tend to isolate you from those people because they just want you to themselves, and that's how abuse can then manifest in its best form. So those people are cut off. So for me, it was, I wasn't really spending much time at home, wasn't really spending much time with my friends anymore, because all I was doing was seeing him. And the reason why that happened was abusive relationships aren't always bad. So the good was good, but the bad was terrible. So I was always drawn in by the good. The good kept me coming back and thinking, maybe this time it's going to be better. And the bad made me want to run. But then I was so manipulated by him, in the sense that he would threaten to commit suicide if I left him, or he would threaten to ring up all my friends and say something awful about me, or he would threaten to turn up at my house and, you know, do something to my parents. So it was always that I stayed under the guise of threat, but also because suddenly around the corner of that bad stuff was, oh, he's become good again and he's being nice again, and so actually maybe this is the time that it's going to be okay. So I think that it's a really dark spot in my childhood, and it's something that's really scarred me for quite a long time. And like I said at the start of this, I feel very comfortable talking about it now, and I feel really grateful to be in a place where I can speak about it so openly and be very okay with talking about really quite horrible stuff. But for a long time, it really plagued me, and was really challenging.
No, I know that, you know, individuals who act in this way, they make you feel isolated, as he did in his words and his behaviors, and you kind of shut yourself off from those around you. But I know there's one instance where other people start to notice changes in behaviors, where once there was a mark on your body and somebody started to notice it. Do you remember that? And what happened? Were you open about it to that person?
Yeah, you're never open, and you're the best liar ever. So absolutely, you know, I was a shell of the person that I was, and you know, physically there were definitely signs of abuse, but I covered up and I made sure that no one ever saw those. And I also was really, really good at just hiding things. You do. And also because I was also lying from a place of fear. It wasn't lying from a place of, you know, covering it up. It was just, I think that you realize that there's so much shame attached to being in a situation like that. You know, when I think of my upbringing and I think of the loving family that I came from, the brilliant education that I was given by my parents, the fact that I was a, you know, straight A student and the head of house, you know, and had all these amazing things going for me, and yet I found myself in that position. I think the shame was so loaded onto me that actually not only was it the fact that I was manipulated and coerced into staying with him, it was also that the alternative, which was to tell people what was going on, was almost worse, because it was so shameful and it was so embarrassing, highly embarrassing to have ended up in that position, that I actually was like, you know what? I'm able to hide this. I'm able to cover it, and I'm able to manage it right now. And this is better than the alternative, which is people knowing. Yeah.
And then as time goes on, you of course eventually leave that individual. That takes power, it takes courage. It's not easy to do that. And I'm sure there are men and women listening to this right now who are in a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
How did you find the power to leave him?
Yeah, I think that leaving is probably the most difficult thing that anyone can do. And, you know, there's a stat that a woman will, and I only know for women because I'm predominantly focused on them, working with them in this country, but it's stat in the UK that women will leave an abusive relationship 5 times before they fully leave, you know, for definite. So they'll go back 5 times before they're able to actually, you know, draw a line and actually be gone from that person. So in my situation, I had tried leaving him multiple times before. None of them were successful, and I did keep going back for the reasons that I just gave. But there was a really specific moment where I just knew that if I didn't do it then, it would have been, you know, things were just progressively getting worse. And if I didn't do it then, I could just see the future, and I could see that it wasn't going to go the way that I wanted it to go. And I knew that I had to get out, and it was terrifying. And I think the difficult thing is that I really didn't lean on people. I tried my hardest to do it on my own. And it was only when he started calling my home phone hundreds of times a night, to the point that we had to disable all of our phones in the house, because it was like he would literally ring and ring and ring through the night. He turned up on my front doorstep. He verbally abused my parents. He ultimately then turned up at my school and attacked me at my school, in front of my friends. The police were called. So I went from nobody knowing to everybody knowing. And it was the most like shameful thing. And I think he knew that. I think deep down, he knew that the worst way to just get at me, to really, really like, you know, damage me, I guess, was to do it in front of other people that he knew I would be really upset by. So in front of my parents and in front of my friends, basically.
And how old are you at this stage when this happened?
I was 16. Yeah, I was 16. I was at school. He pulled up on the pavement on the high street where I was at school. I was in school uniform. I was walking from one lesson to the next, basically. Him and a friend got out. His friend held people back. He walked up to me and attacked me in the middle of the street. Yeah, it was awful. And the thing is that I think that of all the things that happened, that was the worst that could ever happen, purely because it was in front of other people, which is crazy, because worse stuff had happened behind closed doors. But it was just so, like shameful. And I remember just everyone around me, like I was just almost like, you know, when if you ever watched a TV show where someone's like in a car accident, for example, and like the noise just cuts off and they just hear like white noise and everything around you is like a blur. I basically felt like that happened. I remember running from where he attacked me into my school and like collapsing into someone that came to meet me, because I was like sobbing in tears. And just like, I don't really remember much from then onwards, which is crazy because I didn't like faint or anything, but it's just like your brain has a really protective mechanism of stopping you from thinking about a lot of stuff that can be really painful. So yeah, it was a...
And was that the last time you ever saw him?
Yeah, that was. Well, I then had to go to court. So I ended up having to go to trial. He was done for assault. I didn't sit in the courtroom, so I was able to do it via video link, which I'm so grateful for, because I didn't actually have to see him. But my dad sat in the courtroom and saw like him and his mum and dad. You know, it's just awful, like thinking about my dad doing that. But yeah.
And on that note of your dad then, so your dad's there, and dad's always wanted Alice to be happy and follow her dreams, and is seeing this happen. And I go on to recent conversations that you and I have had over coffee, because I know, whilst this is 14, 15 years ago that this incident happened, in this last year, something else happened on the streets in London.
Yeah.
Just tell me about that, because you were with your dad.
Yeah. I know. And I think that, you know, I feel 99% of the time, and I'm sure you feel the same, you know, we live in London, great city, amazing things going on, incredibly safe most of the time. But as in any city across the world, there are always going to be people who try and chance it or do things to you that are wildly inappropriate. I was with my dad, we were walking down the street. This guy kind of comes out in front of us. And because I was so deep in conversation as well, it takes you a moment to really be like, did that just happen? But yeah, he just walked past us, turned around and just grabbed my pup in the middle of the street. And I was just like, so confused. At first, I thought he was like trying to stop me or like say something. So I turned around And then he was just turned and just laughing as if it was like the funniest thing that he'd done all day. He was just laughing, and I basically shouted at him, and I swore in front of my dad, which is really bad because I was like, I don't normally do that. But it was a really weird experience, and it does take you right back. It takes you right back to feeling really powerless and really kind of at the behest of men, should I say, like, unfortunately.
But it's the, and people listening to this, wherever they are in the world, like, they've got a responsibility if they see that behavior in public of stepping up, if they think nothing like this is funny in any which way, you know, to make somebody else, especially like you're with your dad.
I know.
You know, what goes on in their minds. Anyway, I guess, Alice, one thing I would say is that there will be people listening. We guarantee it. We know the stats these days that the World Health Organization 2021 said that 1 in 3 women, probably more, will experience some form of violence against them. If somebody's listening right now thinking, you know what, I'm going through a difficult time, whether that is that first incident that happened in the car for you, or whether that is, it's not physical, it's manipulating, it's the verbal abuse, what would you say to them?
So it's a really good question. And it's actually something that I get asked a lot. And I have people that message me daily, weekly sometimes, saying, I know someone that's in an abusive relationship. How do I leave? I wish there were a one-size-fits-all formula. I really do. But each situation is going to be different. But there are some really crucial touch points that I think people should try and adhere to. The first one is try and document everything. Every bruise, you know, message that's manipulative, voicemail, conversation, however you can try and document that as much as you can, try and document it. Keep a journal, you know, if it's that you have something that you hide in a place that they're never going to find, but you're just making a note of every time something happens. The reason why I say that is most of the abuse that occurs in this country and across the world happens behind closed doors. If it comes to prosecuting in abusive cases, it's his word against hers, or it's their word against theirs, you know? And it's really hard to get a conviction because a lot of it is behind closed doors. It's not seen. It's not in, you know, I was so lucky in a way that mine happened in broad daylight in the middle of the high street in front of loads of people. Stupid him, but lucky me, you know, I was able to get a conviction. Unfortunately, the majority of stuff does happen behind closed doors. So if you can and if you feel comfortable, try and document everything, even if you're not ready to leave yet and you know that it's going to be really dangerous for you to do so. At some point, you might have the confidence to go to the police or go to someone, whether that's a women's charity, a domestic abuse charity, whatever it is, and say, this is happening to me. I have all of these logs of these things happening. I need someone to help me. It's just a really powerful thing to be able to make sure that you're bolstering your evidence to support you should you come to a point that you then, you know, are trying to get a conviction. The second thing that I would say is try and have just one person who you're able to speak to about it. I know that that's really hard, and I wasn't able to have that person. And I really look back and think, if only I'd have just told someone from a place of just needing to be like, this is happening to me, and I just need you to know that I'm not ready to leave right now, or I'm not ready to kind of get out of it, but I just need you to know that I need you to be there should I need you. I think, you know, it is really difficult. Again, the shame, the stigma, the fear stop you from that. But if you can and you have someone, try just to say, and even if it's a tiny bit of what you give them, you don't have to tell them everything. You can just say, I'm in a really difficult place right now with my relationship. I need you to just be there for me if that's okay. And then the last thing is just know where to go, signpost where to go if you do really need help. Number one place if you're in danger is to go to the police, obviously. Know, you know, that number is always there, and try and make sure that you have a phone that you're able to access at all times. We know, unfortunately, from so many abusive cases, they will stop their financial, you know, autonomy, so they won't have much money, which means that they can rarely leave, sometimes taking away their passport, their bank cards. We also know that they'll take away their mobile phones, so they don't have a mechanism to be able to contact people. They will do whatever they can to keep you small and in place and able to control. So if you can have a phone that you can ring, either it's the police or, and I can only speak from this country because I don't know as many resources across the world, but in the UK, we have the Domestic Abuse, you know, National Helpline. We also have Women's Aid, we have Refuge, we have some brilliant initiatives that are going on across the country that are literally there and waiting to help women that are fleeing abusive relationships. So signpost people to those, you know, if it's for someone else, or just familiarize yourself with them if it's for you. Go onto the website, have a little read of the tips that Women's Aid, for example, give, and just really try and get to a point where you feel confident enough to know that there's someone there to help you should you want to leave. Yeah. But like I said, also, and my final point is, if you leave and you go back, know that you're not alone in doing that, and know that that's also, I hate to say it's okay because it's obviously not okay, but it's a well-trodden path, and it's something that sometimes people have to go through to actually leave for good. So
and I think it goes back to your point that we wish there was a one-size-fits-all, but every single person is unique, and every situation, relationship is personal, and I think it's on the receiving end of that friend, that trusted friend, it's just a reminder for everyone to be non-judgmental, just to listen and hold the space for that friend, whatever they're going through, and don't judge them, and just be there for them. But you know, you've been on a real journey, Alice, and whilst that went on and you found the power to leave and it went through court, and these moments are still with us. I always say we move on with, we don't move on from these moments. How did it, if so, impact your mental health and physical health along your journey?
Yeah, I think really it's something that I'm only coming to grips with now. Isn't it so interesting how trauma can be so systemic and can really last? And I think that now I've obviously really worked hard to do the work as such to kind of heal from these experiences. But yeah, definitely coming out of it, actually, one of the worst things that I did was I didn't want any counselling. I didn't want any therapy. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I literally left that courtroom, drew a line and thought, I'm never going to deal with that again. I'm never going to think about it.
Which is like the young Alice who doesn't look back, right?
Exactly. And it was just moving forwards. I'm on to the next thing. And I really didn't let it get to me. And it was only probably about a couple of months later, I started having really bad panic attacks, to the point that like my mum would have to sleep in my bed with me. It was like I was really beside myself, and it was just the physical symptoms like coming out, and it was almost though like my brain was trying to tell me that something was wrong, and my body almost like felt those physically, you know, whether it was having a panic attack or whether it was, you know, really trying to find some sense of normalcy but actually struggling to do so. And so for a long time that happened, and then I think it really shifted and it became about control. So I'd come from a place where I had no control and I felt zero autonomy over my body, my choices, whatever. What I then did was, I'm out of this relationship, I now need to control. And control is going to be the best thing and the most crucial thing that I can have over myself. So then it became about controlling my food, controlling my eating, developing very disordered habits around that, really trying to lean into the fact that I now was in full control of what I was doing. And it was almost from, you know, one end of the spectrum to the other. And that then shifted me into this place of, you know, being overly controlling with everything in my life. And, you know, I've had to learn to be out of control, which is a really difficult thing for me now. But it's almost like that was my coping mechanism. I just became a complete, I hate to use the word control freak, but basically that, in that like, it just was a way of me being able to self-soothe. And I think that I then looked to other things. You know, I did end up having therapy, but only years later. But also I think the best thing that I did, and I'm just looking down at my graph now, because when I get to 21, I see that line start to go up. The best thing that I did was to really take ownership of my future and to say, I really want to be on the stage and I really want to be in musicals, and to turn around and kind of almost draw a line behind everything that had come before me and say, I'm going to go on a completely different path now. Again, young Alice just being like, I know exactly what it is that I want to do. I think I'd always known I wanted to be on the stage and I'd always done that stuff, but I had kind of been coaxed along because of my school and my friends and everything else that was going on for me with that, to going down the university route. And it really was like, I think it was about 2 weeks before I was due to go to university that I just went, I can't do this. Wow. My parents are like, what? And I was like, no, it's not for me. I want to go and train in musical theatre. So I pressed pause on my studies, like on my, you know, going off to university, got a job, earned some money, started auditioning, and off I went. And literally that line goes up because from doing that, life just went well. everything transformed for me. It was like,
Why? What was that, your mindset? Was it what changed?
I think it was a number of things. I'd say the first thing is I found an environment in which I felt so accepted.
Okay.
It was just like, I don't know whether it's, I really think people in the theatre world are just a bunch of great people, like a little bit misfits sometimes, but just like people that just love what they do. And everyone in that room, when I walked in on my first day of college, they really had worked hard to be there. Not like university where like you get a place and you go along and you probably turn up to a few lectures. Like this was full on. This was every day, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., sometimes 9 o'clock because we had rehearsals. Every day, hard work, you're in. And every person in that room had worked really hard to get there. And suddenly we're just all in the same space where we're like, we really want this. We're hungry to be successful. And I think it was a really good environment for me. I met amazing people there. I met like my people, like my best friend who I'm like, you are my person. We met on the first day. And I was like, this is like, this is what friendship is meant to be. This is how things are meant to be. And like life just, for whatever reason, just started to go really, really well for me. Like things just started to come together. And I do think it's a mindset thing, but I hadn't done anything to get myself into a good mindset. I hadn't had therapy, hadn't dealt with any of that stuff that had come before. But actually for me, it was more just, I've drawn a line behind school, everything that happened there and everything that came before this age. And this is now my fresh start. I'm out the house. I'm living in London. I'm like absolutely living the dream right now. And I just grabbed it with both hands and ran with it.
And one of those things, so you find your kind of your tribe, you've got passion, they're you know, full of purpose and meaning. And then I know you go on your own journey. You say things are looking up. You launch Clean Eating Alice, right?
Yes.
And I know then later, what I'm really interested in, you pivoted and almost had a switch to Alice Living, which is your name with an E, for anybody listening and ever misspelling it. What sparked that change in decision, and how did it feel making that decision?
So yeah, Clean Eating Alice was born at university. It was an extension of, I guess, some of that control around food and exercise that had come from that healing process. But it was a way of me being able to document this kind of lifestyle change that I was going on, and wanting to really aesthetically change and be in a small body and be, unfortunately, like for all I've praised about the theatre industry, it's still massively old school in the fact that you need to be, you know, predominantly thin, white and pretty, and that's rubbish and it is changing. But at the time, like I just wanted to be that. I wanted to tick all those boxes. I wanted to have the best body. I wanted to, and I knew that would get me far. You know, I wasn't the most talented person in the room, but if I had the body and the look, I knew that I could get far. So I was like, right, I'm going to commit to that. So Clean Eating Alice was kind of born from doing the diet stuff, changing my body and really getting to a point, sorry, I'm just going to change my legs, and really getting to a point where I was like in a, you know, a ripped physique. Like I had a six pack and I was really being told by everyone around me, oh my God, you look amazing. Why the shift? I think that it was a difficult time. I did a little dip on my timeline there. It wasn't as bad as what I went through before, but there was definitely a dip because from starting Clean Eating Alice, life was going great. You know, things were coming to me. My following was shooting up on all social platforms. I had people messaging me every day. You look amazing. I want to look like you, blah, blah, blah. My ego was for sure being massaged constantly. I then started to receive a little bit of backlash and people that were kind of like, you know, questioning that I wasn't eating enough, that I wasn't really, you know, sort of doing things healthily. And, you know, in my naive state, everything that I was doing up until that point was healthy. I thought I was the healthiest version of myself. I thought I was literally a pillar of health. I was, you know, barely eating carbs, exercising 7 days a week, you know, doing all the things that I thought were health. And it was a moment when I was away with a friend in Greece. We were on a press trip and a Daily Mail article came out about me that sort of said she is responsible for eating disorders, in as many words, you know. And I think that was a really pivotal moment for me, where I was like, this had just been kind of not a hobby, but it had been something that was like, you know, not that serious. It was been a really nice, like, social media kind of exploration. And you have to remember that Instagram was still really new at this point. And suddenly it became really real. I was like, whoa, this is affecting people. And I need to ask myself some questions about what I'm doing and how that's affecting other people. And I guess deep down, I knew that, you know, surviving off 1,200 calories a day is really not sustainable. And I knew in myself, like, as much as I thought I was healthy, I was pretty exhausted all the time. I wasn't having a period, so I lost my menstrual cycle. So there were definitely things that were like red flags for me, but I sort of just thought, no, I am healthy. You know, you can override it. You can convince yourself that you're doing the right thing. That article came out, and I think within the space of a couple of weeks, I was like, right, things need to change. Like, I can't keep doing this. And I think it was really hard, because the first couple of years of that, I basically just had to really relearn what health meant to me. What is health? You know, if you sit here and, you know, anyone else you ask, health is going to be different to lots of people, but we definitely know that health isn't what I was doing. I also had to really work out, you know, what is it that I want to get from this social platform? And if I'm going to ride this storm and come out the other side, hopefully feeling better, doing better, knowing better, I need these people to stay on my side. So I need to be really transparent about what it is that I've done, the mistakes that I've made, and how I'm trying to unlearn those and move forwards in a better way. So I had to really own some big mistakes quite publicly, you know. I had to talk openly about the fact that, what I was doing really wasn't very healthy. I lost my period. I never spoke about that openly, but that happened. That really isn't very good. You know, there were things that I had to do that felt really hard, but that I really had to do on a public stage in order for me to be able to keep that trust with the audience of people that had bought into me and had looked up to me and had thought that what I was doing was the right thing and the best way to be. So it was hard. It was really hard. And I'll have to be honest with you, probably didn't come out the other side of that really challenging period where I was so uncomfortable with my body and this change and who I was and where my voice was in that space until maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. So it was a big chunk of time.
And that's a big decision, as you say, to make, but a conscious one. I think you chose the right route, not the easy route, because so many of us can choose what's easy. And then you changed to Alice Living. It's who you are. It's what you do today. But I do want to go behind that then. Like, Alice today, how do you go about making decisions? You made a big decision there that was based on keeping the trust of your following and being open. When you've got decisions to make in your life today, no matter how big or small, what goes through your mind? How do you make that decision?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say I'm pretty good at, and I think that I like to really back myself in trusting my gut. I have a very good intuition when it comes to meeting people and knowing if someone's going to be, so for example, if it's hiring or if it's, you know, interacting with someone on a kind of business front, I'm pretty good at knowing if someone's a good person that I want to invest my energy into, if they're not. Basic things, I think I'm pretty impulsive. Me and my boyfriend, and my fiance, I should say, me and my fiance are really different in the sense that he is that person that, say we're going to buy something for the house, he'll go in, he'll test it 10 times over, he'll check online to see if he can find it cheaper, he will explore every opportunity to find that thing in a different way, or find, you know, a different thing until he makes the decision. Whereas I'll go in, if I like it, and I've got it that there and then. We're just very different in that sense. So I am incredibly impulsive with my decision making, but I also think a lot of that is led with gut feeling, what feels right. And it does mean that I make a lot of mistakes, but I think that that's almost like part and parcel of life. And I quite thrive off when things are tough and when there are mistakes that are made and you need to kind of find a solution or whatever. I think I do quite well in those situations. So I almost like the problem solving aspect of that. Not to say that I make decisions solely to make mistakes, but, you know, they happen. But I'm pretty impulsive with my decisions.
And Another thing I want to focus in, because you mentioned that when you launched Clean Eating Alice, initially social media following was booming. It was great. And you were on press trips in Greece, which just sounds so much fun. Social media, is it good for us?
I think there are two answers to this one. Is it good for us? No.
Okay.
Is it a necessary part of modern life? Yes. Which means that can we escape from it? No. Which means that we have to find a healthy solution to the original problem. So I don't think it's good for us.
Okay.
I think that in many ways it is a very challenging platform that we are suddenly exposed to so much more than we ever have done before. So many more opinions than we've ever experienced before. I think that there is a tiny part of me that still clings to the fact that it fosters great communities, and I feel lucky to have one of those. So actually, let me reserve 90% of it's bad, 10% of it is great. 10% of it is full of amazing, lovely people, incredible communities, being able to reach out to people that you are able to connect with and who you never necessarily have come across otherwise. 90% of it is challenging for the individual, for me, for you, for any of us that are using it. It's addictive. It's incredibly bad at making you feel inadequate, making you feel like you need more, making you feel like you're not good enough. There are many aspects of it that are hard to deal with, but as I said in my original answer, it's not going anywhere. So it's not very valuable for me to sit here and say social media is not good, because we're not going to lose it tomorrow. None of you are going to delete your social platforms tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's here to stay. So how can we help people to have a positive relationship with it, to use it in a positive and healthy way, and in a way that is going to hopefully foster better communities, interactions, and kind of best practices moving forwards.
And I agree. I've met some amazing people on social platforms that when I'm in a city and I tag and then people message you, and it's been amazing. I guess, as you say, it depends on a positive, healthy relationship with that social media, which requires some responsibility on our part. But one thing that I think people are not responsible for are some of their comments online. And you shared before, Alice, elsewhere, that you've almost experienced online bullying daily, comments that you get. And I see them because you're very open about them. That when I see these, I'm in shock. How do you deal with these comments, these people every single day?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. And I think, when you ask me, is social media a good thing? The first thing that comes to my mind is, well, no, because I literally get awful stuff almost every single day. I think that...
do you have any examples of that? Because I want people to realise the type of things that you might see.
I mean, I'm told last week I had a woman that was like replying to all of my Instagram stories saying, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat. I mean, I laugh. It's like horrible, but like, it's just... people just really can just be really mean. I'm trying to think of other things recently, but it's varying. It can go from being as ridiculous as someone saying they don't like the way that I look, or that I, whatever. It can be something about an appearance. Usually, if it's a woman, they're criticizing my appearance. If it's a man, they are criticizing something about me. They're saying something that like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, whatever, whatever it is. That's really generalized, but typically I would find women tend to go for appearance, which can be really hurtful. But I would say that in terms of dealing with it, I don't. I find it really hard. And I don't deal with it well. I don't have a thick skin. I'm not a good person for dealing with a lot of that stuff. And I know people that are online who have a really thick skin and who are amazing at like laughing off a lot of these comments. I can get a bad comment and it's interesting. It's sometimes the ones that like really kind of go in at you at something that you might feel a little bit kind of sensitive about, or whatever, that really can stay with you. And they just, they're in that place within your brain that like, no matter how many positive comments you're going to get, you always can keep coming back to that negative one that's like, ooh, are they right? Are they actually right about me? Is that actually true? Do people actually think that? And, there's online forums now where people literally have threads about me, about loads of other influencers, where they're just tearing you to shreds. I mean, absolutely tearing you to shreds. And that could ruin me. So I have to be really, really objective about what I interact with and how much energy I give to these things. I've had therapy for the last like 3 years, and I would say probably 1 session out of 4 we probably always come back to, I got an awful message this week and it really upset me. It is something that's like a constant thing, but I think that I always have to remind myself that I do try and put out good into the internet space and into the social media world, and 9 times out of 10 the messages that I get, the people that I interact with, the people that come up to me in the street who talk to me are like, you're doing amazing things, and they're lovely. And it's those people that I stay online for,
Exactly.
If every time you received a criticism or a nasty comment or whatever and you just quit, you'd literally be quitting every single thing you've ever done. So I think that it's challenging, and it definitely is something that I struggle with, but I would say I come back for the good people, and the good definitely outweigh the bad.
And I think it's, again, people who are watching, listening to this, I read something before, it's like, if you're leaving a comment or saying anything, 1, is it necessary? 2, is it true? And 3, is it kind? And otherwise it's almost like the 3 gates. Is it necessary? Is it true? And is it kind? Because in a world where there's so many challenges out there, can we just be kinder to each other? And I know it's something you believe in. Now, Alice, on the Superpower podcast, this is all about sharing what I believe your superpower is. Okay. But before I go there, I've got a few kind of quick fire questions for you, right?
Go for it.
And my quick fire are known for not being that quick fire because they make people think a little bit.
Okay.
And so the first one is, it's this, that if you had to eat 1 meal every day for the rest of your life, what we have in?
Oh, that's a really good one. I would probably say a Sunday roast, which if you're not in the UK, like that's basically our like Sunday dinner: roast potatoes, Yorkshire pudding, probably roast chicken, all the trimmings. Yeah, I would say that, just because I love a roast.
Love that.
My mum's as well is particularly good, so probably
Shout
my
out to
mum's Sarah's Sunday roast is probably number 1. She'll love me for that.
Right, second one then. If you're organising a dinner party, you can have 3 people there who are with us today, so alive or they've passed away. Who would you invite and why?
Okay, this is hard. I know. Give me a few seconds. Okay. Number 1, probably the number 1 person that I am totally and utterly obsessed with is Beyonce. I would have her there. Number 2 would be Serena Williams, because I also am obsessed with her. I remember watching the documentary about her when it first came out, and I just love her drive. I love people that are undeniably focused on what it is that they want to achieve, and I think that she is phenomenal at that. And I remember, sorry, this is going waffly now because it's off on a bit of a tangent, but I loved that she wasn't just a tennis player, that she went off and did loads of other things. And like, I remember seeing her doing like circus tricks in the thing because it was complementing her training. It was something that she really enjoyed, and she just she came across an amazing person. I would love to meet her. So I've got Beyonce, I've got Serena Williams. Should we have?
You've got a third one.
Oh, Tina Turner. Tina Turner.
Okay.
So I'm the biggest Tina Turner fan ever. God rest her soul. She literally just passed away, and it really upset me. But Tina Turner was an incredible woman who was a victim of domestic violence, who had an unbelievable life in terms of her success didn't really come until later in life, aged 40. She was touring, she was performing. She's done so much for charities. She really is an amazing woman. And I would so love to meet her. I probably listen to her more than anyone else music-wise. I am obsessed with her. So those 3,
so
my power
Beyonce,
women.
Serena and Tina.
Yeah.
Who are all there
what
singing.
Girl band.
Yeah, love that. Okay, and finally, if I could give you an unlimited supply of one thing in your life, what would it be?
Does it have to be a physical thing, or can be anything? Okay. Unlimited supply. I would say I would want an unlimited supply of motivation.
Oh.
Just like, I want to achieve lots in life. I have big goals and big dreams. And it's just like, I want to be that person, because it doesn't happen for me. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't think it happens for anyone. But I want to be that person that every day they wake up and they're like, I know what I'm getting up and I want to achieve something today. Like I've got the motivation to do that. I think exercise is a big part of my motivation. Like exercise makes me feel that sense of discipline that I quite like. I come from a performance background where I was very disciplined at college and whatever. So I still like having that kind of, I get up, I go to the gym. It's like, having that discipline, but I'd love an unlimited supply of motivation to make sure that I do that, loads, and I can really achieve what I want to achieve.
Love that. Well, thank you for being so open there. And as shared, obviously, this is the Superpower podcast where it's my job to share with you, Alice, what I believe your superpower is. And this one is one that has been on my mind throughout today and even before today. And a superpower with all of our guests, it's that one thing that really has helped them in the dark times, but also gets them through the high times and makes the highs even better. And this particular thing I've written down, it's every time I've met you, you showcase this. And whilst this is something that anybody around the world can do, you do it far more than anybody else I've ever met. And this is a bit different to everybody else's superpower because I've put your superpower as your smile.
Oh my God, that's so nice. I was thinking, what is he going to say? Oh, that's really lovely. Thank you.
Because, you're so genuine, and I know a lot of people smile and it's great and smiling is contagious. We know that. But you genuinely mean it and you're always beaming and you're smiling. And is that just who you are? You're just a smiley person? Have you always been this way?
Yeah, I think that I have a naturally smiley face. I do. Yeah. But I have to say that I have really, we've spoken a little bit about this journey that we go through, and I left my line, on my little chart there at the end, from nearing 30 and then where I am in my life now, where it's just steady. Yeah. And I think that the reason why I did that was because life is really good for me right now. And I have so much gratitude for where I am and what I have. And I think that gratitude is one of the biggest things that we can all practice, right? In terms of what it does for us to wake up every day and say, I'm so grateful for my health. I'm so grateful for my family. I'm so grateful for my job. I'm grateful for so many things in my life that have happened to me. And with all those things going on, I have no reason not to smile. And that's not to say that I don't have days where I find it really tough. We've spoken about challenging things today, and there are definitely things that come up in my life that, I'll sob my eyes out at points because I find things really hard. I get very overwhelmed with work or whatever. But I do think that for the most part, I've worked really hard to get to this point, in and out of work, therapy, but also doing all the other stuff. Yeah. That now I'm like, life's good. It's not doing this. It's not doing this. It's just really good. And I'm unbelievably grateful for that. And so, my smile comes because I have lots to be grateful for, basically.
See, the powerful thing I read about a smile, according to Charles Darwin, is that actually it can cut across all cultures. Whereas body language, it's different across cultures, whereas a smile really is universal. It's generally something positive. But also I read scientifically, and somebody can correct me if you study smiles, that apparently it takes 43 muscles to frown, whereas only 17 on average to smile.
So basically, either way, you're working muscles, which is great.
Right, I love that your mindset goes down that route. It is a workout.
Either way, you're working your muscles, and that's a good thing. Hopefully doing them in your body as well as your face, but
Love that. Now, I've got one final question for you today, Alice, that I'd like to finish on, because you've done so much in your life, and I want to ask you, what do you want Alice living you? What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, do you know what? I think it's really timely that you've asked me that, because it's definitely been something that I've been thinking about. I think that as you develop success and do amazing things and have amazing opportunities, you go along this thing of being very self-centered for a while. I think we've all done that, right? Where you're like, it's me and this is what I'm achieving. And I think that it's probably in the last few years where I've started to really think about my purpose and my legacy. What is it that actually people will remember me for? Because there'll be a million personal trainers come and go. There'll be a million people doing what I do that'll come and go. So what is it about me that people are really going to remember? And actually, I think it's something that I haven't quite figured out yet 100%. So I don't want to give you a waffly answer because I don't have a genuine answer. I know that there's definitely things that I want to work on, in terms of I work with women's charities, mentoring and helping other people and trying to do other things. But I also think that I'm actually at the moment in a phase of my life where I'm really starting to think about legacy and purpose and those words being way more important to me than success and money and achievement, I think that in terms of what fulfills me, the stuff that really gets me going is stuff that really gives back to other people. And as much as I love success for myself, I also love to be able to share in that success. I don't just want it for me, I want it for everyone. So I think my answer would be, I'm not sure yet. I don't have necessarily like an 100% idea of my legacy that I'd love to be remembered for. But if I were to say, near enough, I think it would be something that gives back, that does something for other people, that helps people that might have been in a position that I was in, or gone through what I've gone through, and that I can really make positive change with that. So yeah.
And I think this is testament to your humility oftentimes, though, of people could easily sit on this show and have all the answers figured out, or pretend that they do, whatever, we would never know. But to be so open, say, actually, this is a journey, I'm still figuring it out, as we all are. Thank you for being so open. And I know for me, the one thing I'm going to always remember about you is, of course, your smile. That is infectious in everybody who meets you. And people who are watching this right now, I hope they're smiling. And people next to them, or wherever they are, will smile too. But Alice, from me, I just want to say, I'm a huge fan of your work since we've met. It's been great just following your work. Your journey is going to help so many other people. And there's exciting times ahead for you. Fiance, becoming husband, weddings on the horizon, and all sorts. And he's a lovely guy, so I think we should give him a shout out here as well, to Paddy. But I will always be here to support you on your journey, whatever I can do. And I really appreciate you and getting to know you. I think we're all going to smile away. So thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much. That was so lovely. Thank you. Honestly, I really appreciate it. It's been great. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing because it's amazing.
Thanks. Also, a thank you to you, our listeners, for being part of this community. By watching, subscribing, liking, and also leaving comments on all the videos, it honestly really helps us to grow the show and to invite more incredible guests to join us in the future. Now, our plans are super exciting, and with your support, we can make this even bigger. And so if you do enjoy the show, please do hit the follow button on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening to the podcast. It really means so much to me and all of us at the Superpower Podcast. And if you're watching us on board your in-flight entertainment, remember to follow us when you land, or maybe you've got Wi-Fi in the sky. For now, it's a huge thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Superpower Podcast with me, Gian Power.